This is Our View, the television voice of Washington's working families. When legislators returned to Olympia for the 2007 session, Federation members were there to say hello and remind them we are interested in issues that will affect the quality of life for everyone in the state.
The people that make the biggest difference in our jobs on a daily basis is the legislator. They're the ones that provide the funding and the policies that directly impact our job. Therefore, I think it's important for us as employees to have a personal relationship with our legislators, and so that they know that we're holding them accountable for the decisions that they make.
Well, I was on the bargaining team and represented Centralia college employees, and I knew about their concerns, about their issues. And I have to tell you, when you have happy employees that feel respected, the services that they provide are much better than those employees who don't feel like they're respected and who are very disappointed in the support from their legislators. So today it's really important for someone to come from Centralia College to let the legislators know, this is really important for us. This means the highest cost of living adjustment. It's not a raise. I think raises are different. Cost of living adjustment, since that what we will get in July 2007. It'll be the highest one since 1991. In 1991, we got 5%. And this past July, we got a 1.6. And I heard from so many different employees that got maybe $1 extra per paycheck because their pension plan deductions went up. So this next time around will be means so much more to the employees, because cost of living keeps going up, and our cost of living adjustments have not.
Our message to the legislators is I would like for them to fund our collective bargaining agreement to ensure that Western State is able to hire more FTEs because of safety. One of the main reasons is safety at Western State Hospital. We have a real problem on safety, and one of the things, if we had more people or more employees, it would be a lot safer. Basic issue is lack of staffing, lack of training, and some of the reasons for this is lack of funding. We do not have the money to get more FTEs, and we don't have the money to train the personnel once we get them. They're getting injured by patient on patient and patient on staff. Our patients just get upset, irritated, and they're all unpredictable like most humans, but they're more unpredictable than we are. And sometimes they get upset and go off. And what I mean by go off, they just retaliate on whatever's near them, whether it's another patient or a staff person. Retention for licensed personnel is really difficult, and mainly because of pay. And even though we're getting a 3.2 raise this year, and the nurses are getting a very good increase, it's still retention. We need to get more licensed nurses, plus regular normal FTEs, and people who's willing to stay there and work hard and take care of the patients.
The legislators also saw visitors on Martin Luther King Day in the form of low-income citizens who looked to them for a hand up, not a handout.
So this is a grassroots developed and driven agenda that we bring to the legislature, and we will be working on these issues all year. Specific issues are payday lending industry has over 300% interest rate, and we want to rein those companies in. That's usury, and we do not want to have to pay that much for emergency loans for people with low incomes. We want to continue to have coverage for health care for everyone in Washington State, because our health care has too many gaps in it. And so people are not able to get dental care, or they cannot pay for the medications that they need. Another big concern for people is the ability to earn a living wage. And so there's two things. One is trying to make sure that we get enough funding for education, so people can get a four-year degree, but also we want to encourage living wage jobs for all. I'm a caregiver, is what I do for a living, and I love being a caregiver, and I do not love getting paid $9 an hour for it, however. Most of the American public needs to be aware that the reason why we're having so many budget cuts is because of a decision to adopt a certain economic agenda. And that economic agenda really writes working people out of the picture. What we are encouraging is more of a mixed economy type of economic agenda, which means that people get paid well, and that is what generates wealth for your community and for your nation. If we had money, we'd be spending it, and we would be building our economies. Right now, we're not all talking to each other, so we don't realize that we're all in the same boat. But I talk to people who I work for, they're middle class, and they're worrying about how they're going to pay their medical bills and, and their medication also. So yeah, we are all in the same boat, and the more we reach out and talk to each other, march in the streets, whatever it takes to get each other's attention and start talking to each other, I think we'll all realize that.
Benjamin Marcus continues his report on how pay isn't keeping up with the real cost of living for working families, not in the U.S. and not in Europe either.
In our previous report, we talked about the changes of living costs in France, how the euro made some prices rise, how minimum wage went up from 7.3 euros per hour in 2000 to 8.27 euros per hour in 2006, but was not always profitable for many workers. Looking at the statistics, it seems that 30 years ago the percentage of expenses per home was higher than now.
The situation has completely changed from the 70s, where we had an economy which was rather booming in the late 60s and beginning of 70s, as well as we had an increase in purchasing power. We had an increase also, a good level of employment, and today we have a high level of unemployment. So this is a huge pressure on wage bargaining today, and this is how the result is very bad. And the other situation that has changed also the growth level, which was very, very poor since the booming of the end of 2000. Today what we call in French dépenses contraintes, constraint spending, which is compulsory if you need to live, to rent a house or to buy a house. You need also to buy food, and all this constraint, this is where the prices have been very increasing in our country for the last decade, whereas other prices declined, such as consumption of goods imported from Asia, for example, where the prices have been decreasing. So on average, the increase in the inflation is very low, but there is huge discrepancies between those constraints where you need to buy every day, where the prices went up very high, and the other prices that went down. So for the people, we know that today almost half of their income is spent on those constraints, and this is where the prices went up very sharply.
Looking at all this, we wonder what could be expected from the government, but also in the future.
Yeah, we are trying to ask the government to relaunch negotiations on wages, particularly, because we are facing a situation with what I told you earlier, that with unemployment very high and also lack of economic growth, wages have not been increasing as we would like, and we are asking for this. We are asking also for help, quite a kind of compensation for transportation. At the moment it's only existing in Paris, and we would like to enlarge it to the whole country. We are also planning to set up a system of guarantee of renting for the landlords, so that the people who have very low wage can afford to rent if they are guaranteed by the system. From an international perspective, what is particularly important to understand in the French and European case, we are a society which tries to give more importance than in other parts of the world to social cohesion. And this is why the people are so much concerned about the future of social security system and retirement system in France. And I hope that this point of view, which can be maybe different from the US one, can help the people who look at this program to understand that social cohesion is very important for the Europeans.
Economical systems may be different between countries, but the cost of living still stays high, and for many people, a big problem.
If you call a company for customer assistance, you often get a voice from India. Many of those jobs were once in the U.S. John Evans of TUAC says those workers are now starting to demand a fair share in exchange for their labor. And it makes the point again that it's in our interest to support workers everywhere.
And I would say also, even in areas in India which have seen a growth of service jobs, workers are also saying, you know, we don't want any poor quality jobs. At the start, they can get university graduates to be working in call centers, to be basically just responding to information. But the turnover in those call centers has now gone up to very, very high levels, 30, 40, 50% a year of workers who are dissatisfied there. So we also have a job to do as labour unions, which is to make sure that those workers have unions which represent their interests, which raise their wages as well. So we've got growing markets also in the developing countries, and so it's a complex situation, but it's one where we need more, I think, international cooperation and labour across frontiers than we've been used to in the past. Because, as you say, every issue potentially, whether it's a service job or a manufacturing job, there's always a possibility of doing it somewhere else in the world, unless we're smart and try and also improve the conditions of those workers overseas.
Here's this month's labor history with Ross Rieder.
February 27th, 1943 began on an optimistic note for most families in Bear Creek, Washoe, and Red Lodge, Montana. The bright sun reflecting off of a new snow gave most people living in the shadows of the Beartooth Mountains a trusting view of the world. It was payday for the Smith mine workers. The men would return home that evening with pay for their toil. Little did the residents of the three communities suspect that morning that their lives would soon be changed forever. The miners knew the danger of their profession. Their wives shared that knowledge. The men began work at 8 a.m. 77 men entered the mine that morning, some into the earth 8,000 feet. Only 3 would come out alive. The explosion inside the mine took place at about 9:37 a.m. Soon the mine siren was wailing and smoke was billowing from the mine entrance. Acting on cue, threatening clouds began filling the sky and the temperature began to drop. 3 men near the entrance of the mine managed to get out. The 3 felt unusual pressure in their ears with no sound. A terrible wind came at them from inside the mine, blowing debris. All mines operating in the area that day were closed as workers rushed to take part in a rescue effort. Wives, brothers, sisters, parents, and children of the entombed miners kept a vigil outside the mine. Many held out hope that their loved ones might have found a spot in the mine where they would be shielded from the explosion and gases. 8 days later, the last body was brought to the surface. 58 women were widowed by the disaster. 125 children left fatherless. One Bear Creek woman lost 11 relatives. 6 of 8 Bear Creek high school seniors lost their fathers. The disaster eventually forced an end to the local coal mining industry. Thousands of tons of coal remained beneath the reclaimed hills around Bear Creek. Today, the rusted buildings of the Smith mine stand by the highway as a monument to those who lost their lives beneath the sage-covered hills, to their brave survivors, and to the courageous rescuers.
This has been Our View, brought to you by the proud members of the Washington Federation of State Employees. We remind you, when you accept a paycheck for your hard work, you don't have to give up your rights. Thank you for watching.